Hi there, my name is Angelo and welcome to the very first episode of my show, Angelo's Boxing Canvas. In this show, I intend to review fights and also analyse bouts from around the boxing world. So firstly, let me introduce myself properly. My name is Angelo. I'm a boxing fan. I've been called other things, not too bad, I hope. I've been called a boxing historian, for example, because of various facts that I've came out with on social media. I don't particularly like the word social media, but there you go. Firstly, I would like to say, just as a introduction to this, and I know the beauty of Facebook, and also I know the beast of Facebook, and the thing is, there's a lot of bad stuff going on Facebook. So I'd like to just clear up one thing, if I may. Firstly, if anybody should start making bad remarks, name calling, cyberbullying, threatening language or bad language, then they will duly be ignored and possibly blocked. I'm not going to take any notice of this. Sadly, you have lovers on Facebook and you have haters on Facebook. So anyway, I thought I'd just clear that up. Firstly, that's out of the way, so now we can carry on with the show. So yeah, I intend to cover all things boxing, from yesteryear to the current world scene. Taking in, as I say, upcoming fights from world boxing, and, as I say, analysing them, breaking them down as best I can, and giving my views and opinions and predictions on the fights. So anyway, just a quick introduction about myself. The first fight I ever watched was in March of 1980, and that was Alan Minter when he won the world title at middleweight against Vito Antuofermo in Las Vegas. From there on, my interest grew. I followed it loosely for about the next 4 or 5 years. Big fights that happened: Marvin Hagler versus Tony Sibson, Hagler versus Roberto Duran, which was the super fight of '83. Obviously, the Hagler-Hearns fight from 1985. I mean, I was following these fights loosely, and as I say, I was following the sport loosely, and I wasn't actually following it as religiously as I should have been. About November '85, I started to get into boxing properly, watching fights, and also recording them from TV, and I was doing this religiously. This is where my interest really did take off. I think the first one I ever taped was Mark Caylor versus Errol Christie in November of 1985. In 1986 I started to buy all the magazines I could, and books, and pretty much everything boxing. I think it was December '86, Christmas 1986 actually, when I was working, and I remember I spent a small fortune on videos, books, and magazines to read for Christmas Day. That's how I spent my Christmas. In 1987, I filmed every single fight on TV, which was terrestrial TV back then, before the birth of Sky, which came on in 1989. Only 2 shows I missed, and that was a show from York called Bethnal Green, which featured Floyd Avard, and also a show from July 1st, 1987, which was the undercard to the Terry Marsh Akio Kameda IBF Light Welterweight Championship. Bit of useless information there. I pretty much studied boxing inside out. I mean, when I was 18, most guys my age were going out partying with girls. All I was doing was going home and watching boxing, ordering fight films from some great dealers. Tony Ray Roberts was a terrific dealer. I got some terrific fights from him, some rare fights, and the footage was just awesome. And you know, these were the fights that used to get me excited. I mean, if I told you my 18th birthday, you know, I didn't go out partying. All I did was went to West End, bought the tape of Ali versus Foreman, got home, and that's how I spent my 18th birthday, watching Muhammad Ali versus George Foreman. So there you have it. That's me. I've been, as I say, called an historian, and I was on Talk Sport Radio as their boxing historian about several years ago. I was there. I appeared on the show quite a number of times. Also was a lead writer with Ultimate Boxing Results, which was quite a famous boxing website. It was we had 100,000 viewers, so readers I should say. So you know, that was that. So I've sort of worked my way up there. So anyway, without further ado, let's get on actually with the show. Enough about me. I hope you're still there, and I don't want to bore you anymore with my life. Okay, so yesterday we had some breaking news from the world of boxing, and it was that Anthony Joshua and Joseph Parker will indeed be facing each other in about, they've given March-April as the window, end of March to end of April, and it could be in either London, Cardiff or Manchester, and I would assume that this will be an open air fight. It will be obviously be in a football stadium, and it's obviously going to be a massive fight. I mean, Anthony Joshua, he holds the WBA and IBF championships and the lesser rated IBO, I believe. On the other hand, you've got Parker. He's the WBO champion. He's from New Zealand, and he's a bit of a puncher. I mean, he's not the biggest of guys stature-wise at heavy, whereas Joshua, he towers about 6'6", 6'6.5", something like that. So you've got, you know, those disparities within that fight. They're height disparities, you know. Obviously, this is going to be a great fight to look forward to. I mean, it's a unification fight. And then obviously the winner of that will go on to fight. So they're mooting to fight Deontay Wilder, the WBC champion. Now the thing is, Joshua Parker, the winner of that fight is Wilder, and obviously whoever wins that will be the first man in heavyweight boxing history to hold the 4 championship belts simultaneously: the WBC, WBA, WBO, and IBF. The only man to have held those 4 world titles, for what it's worth, at heavyweight, but not simultaneously, was Riddick Bowe, who our own Lennox Lewis beat back in 1988 at the Olympics. He became champion in '92. He beat Evander Holyfield, and he trashed the championship, gave it up for Lennox Lewis to take over as WBC champion. So anyway, back to the Joshua Parker fight. I mean, this is almost a done deal. It's pretty much cut and dry. Now I've heard that Parker's people, they want, I think he wanted 50% or something like that, 40%. Sorry, of the purse. But now I believe that Eddie Earn, the promoter, has negotiated that he will get 35% of the purse. The New Zealanders camp have been stating that you know, Joshua is robotic and this, that, and the other. I mean, I will admit, when Anthony first came onto the scene, I wasn't entirely impressed in his first few fights. I mean, he was awfully crude for a guy who had won gold at an Olympic Games, and but then it all came together for him. I believe when he won the WBC international title, sorry, it was a WBC international title, he came into his own. He started to move better. He started to show sort of like what he was about, and the crudeness seemed to evaporate. You know, and he seemed to look the part, so to speak. When he eventually get to fight for the world title, he got a shot against a guy called Charles Martin. Now, I didn't think Joshua's chances were that great against Martin. I thought the chances came too soon. He was being fast-tracked by Eddie Earn, and that, you know, obviously if he had lost this big chance, you know, if he lost this big fight against the then champion Charles Martin, obviously his career would have been in tatters. However, he proved me wrong, so much for me being an expert, and he won the world title, you know, in devastating fashion. I mean, Martin literally sat down, took the full count, and we had a new heavyweight champion of the world. Question marks seemed to loom over Joshua. Was he the real deal? Was it the genuine article? He took on made a few defences. Dominic Brezow, he looked a little bit crude in that one, but you know, he got the job done. There was another guy he beat, I think his name was Perez, he beat him. And you know, and then obviously the big one was made against Vladimir Klitschko back in May, and that fight was made, in April that fight was made, and obviously, you know, Joshua, I mean, I didn't think he was going to beat Klitschko, but again, he proved me wrong. He got up off the canvas, he showed terrific heart, and you know, he has shut up a lot of critics, including myself. However, Joshua has since defended against a guy called Carlos Tite. He won that kind of handedly. Tatum was a very game customer, very durable, and now Joshua won that one, and now he's looking forward to the fight against Parker. Parker is a very durable guy. He's never tasted the canvas, let alone defeat, like Joshua, though Joshua's been down. So obviously the question mark over Parker is, what's his art like? You know, has he got a fighting art? You know, I mean, you don't know these things until a guy goes down, whether he can get up and continue. I mean, Joshua's more than answered that question. You know, he's more than got enough art in that department, you know. So yeah, that's the one to look forward to. That will be, as I say, March or April. That's the window for it, and it will be a massive fight. And I would assume that will be on pay-per-view on Sky Sports and be well worth watching. Future fight, another fight coming up, which sounds quite interesting, is a guy called Yafai. He's defending his WBC international title. It's an all-British class against Gavin McDonnell, brother of Jamie. That looks like quite an interesting fight. Yamal Yafai. And that promises to be quite an entertaining fight. Also, you've got the Chris Eubank George Groves fight at Super Middleweight. This is for Groves' WBA championship, which he won on the Kell Brook Errol Spence show last May at Sheffield United Football Ground in the open air. Groves is you know, the champion. He's classed as the real WBA champion, because the WBA have, I think it's 3 or 4 different champions, and they was actually going to do their own unification fight, which is a bit surreal, to say the least. I mean, you have the WBA regular champion, you have the WBA super champion, you have the WBA interim champion, and you have the WBA. I think you just have the WBA regular champion. I mean, it's a joke. But no, George Groves is the actual fully fledged super WBA world champion, and he will be up against Chris Eubank Jr. Now, Junior, he's only lost his one fight, and that was against Billy Joe Saunders, who turned in a great performance this month against David Lemieux out in Canada. Lemieux is a big puncher, and Saunders absolutely turned him on his head and produced a terrific boxing display, and is now calling out Gennady Golovkin, the winner of his fight, or Saul Alvarez. So that's quite a bit to look forward to. The Eubank Jr. and Groves fight is on ITV Box Office. I believe it's £30 to watch that, and that should be a cracking fight. I can't see Groves winning it. I think Eubank Jr. is going to beat him in every department. I think it's going to be like a history. It's going to be like history repeated for when Prince Nassim Hamed first came onto the scene on the world stage, and he fought Steve Robinson from Wales, and he literally took Robinson apart and stopped him in 8 rounds in front of his own crowd in Cardiff for the WBO Featherweight Championship. And we all know what happened after that, how far Ahmed went. So yeah, I mean, I can see Eubank Jr. It'll be like a coming out party for him. I think he's just going to be too much for George Groves, and I think he's going to beat him in every department. He's just a superior boxer. Groves has been in quite a few tough fights, and though he's the champion, you know, I just can't see him being able to give Junior many problems. I think Junior will win, and I think in emphatic style. I think Junior will win possibly a late stoppage or a fairly wide points decision. So anyway, that's enough for me about the current stage. What I am intending to do with this show is break it up into 4 parts. One of the categories I've named Serra's Errors. Now, Serra's Errors is if you and a friend or a colleague at work are having a dispute about boxing and you can't find it anywhere on the internet or Google, you know, and you need it resolved, then all you do is send me an email and I will do my best with my knowledge to solve it for you, because not everything is available on the internet, you know, not every single fact. So that's something else. Also, I am going to run a competition, and the competition every 2 weeks this show is going to run. I will be giving the winner the choice of a 2-hour DVD of fights from my personal collection. You just name the fights you want and I will do them for you for the winner. That will be a bit later on in the show today. Also, I've got a few other bits and pieces I'm working on, and that's all going to come into fruition at a later date as the show goes on. And also one of the other things in the show is a classic fight that I will be showing you. I will be providing commentary from, and I've called it Michelangelo's masterpiece, naturally. So that's something else I'll be looking into doing, and a few other bits and pieces. Also trying to set up an interview with a former fighter or a current fighter, and I'm going to do that from home. And also you are welcome to interact, to send me questions in, and I will do my best to answer them for you. So there you go. So anyway, now it's the time of the show for competition time. Okay, the competition, the question is, which fighter, professional fighter, floored Sugar Ray Leonard while Leonard was in preparation for his WBC light middleweight title fight against Terry Norris? Which fighter in sparring floored Sugar Ray Leonard? And the correct entrant will have a 2-hour DVD of any fight he wants from my personal collection, and that's the prize up for grabs. Okay, now on to Michelangelo's masterpiece. And I will we're going to go back to Indianapolis, and it's one of my favourite fights I've seen. It's future light heavyweight champion Donny Lalonde, and he takes on Carlos The Force Tite. Now, I'll just paint the picture for you here about the Donny Lalonde Carlos Tite fight. It was at Super Middleweight back in Indiana in '84, and prior to the fight they was training alongside each other, and Donny didn't quite take much of a liking to Carlos. He felt that Carlos was a little bit bolshy around the kids in the gym, and they sparred, and Donny didn't like his attitude, and apparently it was the feeling was mutual. Carlos didn't like Donny, and obviously from there on this rivalry stemmed, and as you will see in the forthcoming fight, it does get quite quite a little bit out of hand, if you like. So without further ado, let's go back to Indianapolis, 1984 for Donny Lalonde, the Golden Boy, versus Carlos The Force Tite.